Hello, this is Mark Sabatella from Outside Shore Music. In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about planning for harp pedal changes. So I'm going to assume you know a little bit about how the harp works, how we have to change pedal. Like if I have a measure here where I want to play an F sharp, it means the F pedal has to be in the sharp position. If in the next measure I want to play an F natural, I'm going to have to change the the F pedal to the natural position. I say I as if I play the harp. I don't play the harp, but I know about the harp. So we add in this harp pedal diagram from the harp palette in MuseScore. And so I'm telling the harpist that they need an F natural here. Now, realistically, I've written it in right where the F natural happens. There's no reason, if you look at the previous measure, they don't need the F sharp after that first B. So they could actually make the pedal change somewhere a little earlier. Some people might therefore write in the pedal change a little earlier. I'm not enough of an expert to really second guess, so I'm just going to write it in where it needs to be and let the harpist figure that out. But let's take a look at a couple of tricky things that I'm doing here that maybe simplify life. Or allow you to express things that would be harder to express otherwise. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, let's take a look at this passage. This passage is the same passage that the cello and the basses have together. It's basically this passage. In the original piano version, that I am orchestrating from, it's just the piano, left hand, but it's a little inconvenient for most instruments to play that full arpeggio, so I have it broken up, and it's also a little more effective because it allows that first note to sustain, which is really what I want. On piano, it would have had a sustain pedal, a damper pedal, sustaining that F sharp, right? So I get to hear that F sharp sustain by leaving it in the basses and then letting the cellos just take the rest of the arpeggio. And then I get to hear this nice descending line. To hear the line descend because it's all played by the bass sustaining those notes. So the harp is perfectly capable of playing that full arpeggio. It's not at all uncomfortable for it to do, and the notes are going to ring equally. So I was able to write that passage without having to split it up, which was kind of nice. Another little trick that I did that just makes the life a little simpler here is in the original arpeggio, it goes basically a low E flat, and if you look at it in the piano version, you can see E flat, B flat, G, B flat, D flat, F. That's the proper spelling of the chord as far as what I was trying to convey. But when I write that for a harp, I didn't call it D flat. I called it C sharp. Why? Not for any theoretical reason. Some people might look at that and say, "Oh, it's an augmented sixth chord, and that's the proper spelling." I'm not gonna be talking about that. I'm not gonna say you're wrong, but I will say that I had my reasons for wanting it to be called D flat. In any case, I'm calling it C sharp for the harp, even though it's called D flat where the cello has it. I'm calling it C sharp here for one simple reason. Pedals, because the harp already has their D pedal in the D position at that point, and so if I wrote this D flat, they would have to change that to a D flat, and then they would have to change back to D in the very next measure. Well, why do that when their C pedal was already in the C sharp position because it was in the key signature? We haven't actually used a C sharp recently. We used one a few measures ago. That C sharp is there waiting to be used. So by notating it as C sharp, I didn't have to put in a pedal change. So it simplified their life going into that change. So that was one nice little planning thing that I was able to do. Now, the last thing really that I want to talk about here has to do with glissandi and how you can get what you want out of a gliss. So if you think about it, on a harp, you're normally just going to stroke your finger across all the strings. You're not going to play them individually, typically. I mean, it's doable, but that's not the sound of a harp gliss. So on piano, what I originally had was this. So, the nice thing about a harp is you can set the pedal and just go brrrring, and it'll play whatever your pedals are set to. But a piano, you got white keys, you got your black keys. There's no way to just go brrrr and get anything other than either white keys or black keys. There's no easy way to make basically a D major arpeggio. So I have something written out that's fairly specific. It's this little pattern, 1, 2, 3, 5, repeating across the octaves. Right? That's what's going on. So that is the sound that I want, the sound of a D major arpeggio, D major triad with that E added. So I want to get as close to that as I can in the harp. So I have notated this, I guess cleverly. Okay, so I have the D pedal in the natural position. Right? That makes sense. I need a D natural. The C pedal I have notated in the flat position. Well, why? Let me put that aside for a second and come to the B pedal. The B pedal, well, I could either have it as B or B flat or B sharp, which is basically C natural. B flat and C natural would be totally wrong harmonically, right? They would destroy the nice harmonic simplicity of that D major triad. I don't want a B flat on top of it. It's a lovely sound, but not the final chord of this piece. Same with this chord. If I wanted a D7 chord, I'd have written a D7 chord, but it's not what I got, not what I want here. So I will accept the B natural, that sixth, as I guess it's compatible with the original sound, even if it's not what I originally wrote. So I'm putting the B in the natural position. Well, now let's come back to that C pedal. Remember I said, well, it could either be C natural, which is not what I want. That's basically a D7 chord. I could make it a C sharp, so I'd have the C sharp, I'd have a major seventh chord. But by making it C flat, I basically am just doubling that B. And so I'm not adding an extra note to the chord. I've already had to accept the B natural. I am now just reinforcing that B natural. So I basically have two B naturals, a C flat and a B natural. You would be perfectly justified if you wanted to write it as a C sharp, but I tried it both ways and I like this better. Because the cool thing is this does affect the playback. We get to hear what it sounds like when I'm done here. So the E pedal, I leave in the E position because I want that E. The F is in the sharp position because I definitely want that. The A is in the natural position because I definitely want that. But check out what I did with the G pedal. The G pedal, I don't want a G natural in my arpeggio. I don't want a G sharp. G sharps could be cool if I was going for this jazzy Lydian sound, but I'm not. So I'm putting a G in the flat position, so it basically gives me another F sharp. Right? That's kind of cool. So my arpeggio is basically a D, an E, two F sharps, an A, and two Bs. That is essentially my arpeggio. And then it's going to repeat across each octave. So when MuseScore or a real harpist goes to play this thing, it's quite close to what I originally wrote. It's about as close as I can get. Now, I do pay a price for this. I'm asking the harpist to make 5 pedal changes. Well, this you can't do all at once. You don't have enough feet to do that all at once. But I don't care if they don't start that gliss right away. If they want to take a second to start that gliss while they get all the pedals in position, that's fine, right? So, or if they want to notice that, hey, I could get that G in a position a little earlier because I don't need the G after this, right? If they want to play some games with when they change the pedals, I'm going to let the harpist worry about that. I'm just going to tell them what I want. And that's it. So as you can see, I'm really thinking through how the harp works in terms of these pedals. So you have to know a little bit about how the harp works, but beyond that, you have to really think through how that is going to affect the playability of your piece and how you're going to plan to get the effects you want. And this was just one small demonstration, just looking at a couple measures of one piece, but it's fairly typical of the kinds of things that you might have to think about when writing for the harp.